Hello, my fellow creatures of the night, and you're very much welcome to the third creature feature of this season of Monsters of Rock, the LORDI story. I'm your guide, Matthew Kessie, and on our stroll through the tormented dollhouse today, we will unscramble the corroded voice box of the Scarby Hella, and see through her discolored porcelain eyes what it was like to be resurrected for the latest LORDI release, Screem Writers Guild.
I'm sure you're very excited now with the new era starting.
Yeah, well, you know, it's the best thing about when you get a new album out and when you have this feeling that this is the best one so far. It's a good feeling, and I personally do have that feeling. I'm really excited about to hear all the feedback that people think about our new album.
I would kind of carry the same sentiment there. I really do think that this album is the best sounding LORDI album, both kind of conceptually and kind of musically as well, because I think when fans and myself and probably the band as well, when you look back on Lordiversity, you guys really stripped back the whole sound of LORDI, back to very, like, you broke off the different segments and focused on them solely. And now when you come back to do this album, you're bringing it all back together into one sound. And I think that is kind of purified it in many ways. You've kind of really perfected the sound in this album. And I'm wondering, you know, when you look back on when you did Lordiversity and you compare it to this album, obviously you're not recording 7 albums this time, but was the process in how this album came about any different to Lordiversity?
Well, not really, because I think Lordiversity kind of showed us that you can shortcut a lot of things, like recording stuff at home and all that kind of stuff is actually doable, and still the quality and the outcome is still good. So I think that what followed from that is that those kind of little things came to stay, that some little tweaks there and there are missing. You don't have to go to studio to add it. You can just record it at home, and that's the style, I think, what stayed from when things just needed to be shortcut because we had so much to do on Lordiversity. So, but certain things we just noticed that it's a waste of time to do it differently.
Yeah.
So we were also in a very tight schedule with this new one. So for that reason as well, there was a lot of shortcuts. I'm actually looking forward to the very old school style of doing album that we all go to some recording studio and spend there a month together in a recording bubble. That is what I'm missing from the old era, because that's what we haven't had in a while.
Would that be something you want to do then on the next LORDI album, then, to bring that back?
That would be something that I'm missing. I don't know, does it actually does it create any better albums? I don't know. It's all just about the feeling of the experience of making the album is different when you live in the bubble, instead of like after a long day at work you stop by at the studio for an hour, do something, or record at home. It just feels different. You really can't get into the album the same way as you do when you're all doing it together. Yeah,
because it sounds like kind of fragmented then, isn't it? Because you're kind of breaking everything into small little pieces rather than hearing the whole picture.
Well, that's it. And then when you get asked like questions about the album, and if you haven't even heard like finished product yet, then it's really hard to say. Like, I have no idea what's been going on since I left and what's done. So, well, this time I have heard it. But like still it's that kind of thing that you can't really, like, only Mr. LORDI, who's in the process from the beginning to the end until the last little lines and tweaks and edit. He's the only one who's really into it when it's done, this kind of bits and pieces there and by different people. So, but yeah, this was unfortunately done that style as well.
And when this idea for this new album came about, because it's recorded quite a while ago now, the album musically is about nearly a year old at this point, really. I guess when you kind of heard this idea for this album, this old school horror themed album, and bringing back that kind of modernish style of Lordi mixed with a lot of the old kind of key sounds from the past first two albums, and when you kind of heard this album and the tracks and everything from it, what was your first reaction?
You mean the demos when I heard
the demos or even the finalized product? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I actually did like it from the beginning, to be honest. There was really, really cool ideas that he had created, and I like that he was able to even bring a tiny bit of disco sound and all those like little tweaks from Lord Diversity included in it. So yeah, I've been really into making this album from the beginning. As much as I was involved, I did write some riffs and stuff, actually more than ever, but none of them ended up on the album. Unfortunately. So that's the when we have this like artistic master like Mr. Lordi, it's like we all write stuff, but it's always like a strike of luck. When does the stuff that you do end up on the final product? So it's totally then always up to him and his visions. But this time I was the unlucky one. I'm not the co-writer of any of these songs, but still, I dig all of them. They're really great ones.
Yeah, and even though you're talking about all them, like the songs that might not have been used, like they're never really thrown to the side and never looked back at again, because I'm sure there's a possibility in the future if they fit into the next album or something, they can be probably brought back in, I'm guessing.
Yeah, well, probably in his work table they were already thrown in the trash, but I have them, so maybe I can
send them back.
Present them as in 2 years. So we'll see.
And kind of when we look at the Screem Writers Guild, I think when I first listened to it, the thing that kind of jumped out at me was the first track I listened to on it was In the Castle of Draculove, and then The Thing in the Cage as well was another one that really stood out to me, that there's a real connection musically this time between you and TC. The bass and the keys really work in tandem together on this album, and they really carry the melody of the songs more clearly, I think, this time around than in previous albums. You can really hear it to the forefront in the start of the songs, and then as it carries through then towards the bridge. And I'm just wondering, was that something that was obvious to you when you were kind of recording these tracks, or was it once you heard the finalized project, you could kind of hear the two of them kind of working together in that way?
As being said, Mr. Lordi also composes like the keyboard, so he is the master. He probably mainly wrote these. I don't know, did he use his old guitar as usual, or did he set by keyboard when he wrote this stuff? But the keyboards are really, I like the keyboards and of course on this album, and of course when there are cool keyboards that I dig, then it always inspires me to then bring my own vision into it. But like it's so heavily guided by Mr. Lordi how these keyboards and everything go there that I can't really take credit out of any of it, to be honest with you. I can then judge me only by the live playing, but all these album ideas that he has a very clear and specific ideas of what kind of world of keyboards and how do they go with bass and all that. It's very strongly, he's driven by his ideas and his vision. If you want to know about the process of writing keyboards, talk to him.
Even when we were kind of talking about the keyboards and everything like that, one of the tracks that was really different sounding, especially the kind of intro, how long it is for, I guess, a single, which is very strange for a Lordi song, for it to have a really long intro as the main single track in Dead Again Jane, because that intro is quite long, and you can kind of hear that harpsichord kind of sound on that too, which is, it's not really something that we kind of hear too much in Lordi, that kind of particular sound, but it kind of, a lot of the keys in this and the sounds and everything like that, they really are kind of those early Lordi albums. They kind of draw my own kind of mind back to them. So I'm just kind of wondering, was there a lot of kind of, when you came in, you heard all of these sounds, was there a lot of maybe a little bit of experimentation from your side of things, or, did you kind of see, this is kind of working in the old school kind of sound of Lordi?
I think what Mr. Lordi has been looking with this sound is the atmosphere atmosphere of these old horror movies.
Yeah.
So, like, this harpsichord sound and all that stuff, that's really, like, rather than really thinking old LORDI music, his head has been wrapped around this, like, creating the horror movie atmosphere.
Okay.
So that's where that comes from.
Right.
Purely, I'd say. Of course, then if you think of, he probably thought about his favorite old horror movies when he wrote the early LORDI songs as well.
Yeah.
Is it really, like, from the beginning to the end, to have this kind of a movie, like, the stories are, like, carrying from the old horror movies, so also the sound world is supposed towards that idea that you can picture, of course, in a little bit different era movies and whatever, but, like, that's, I think, where the whole world of keyboard sounds is really getting their inspiration from.
Yeah, that does make sense. Even though we're looking at a new LORDI album coming out this Friday, and it's obviously the biggest news this year, but if we look back last year, I guess the biggest news kind of around this point, I think it was May last year, was Eamon's departure from LORDI, and for a lot of fans that was quite a surprise. But I guess obviously within the band and people close to the band, it was probably coming for quite a while. It was going to eventually kind of come to that. But I'm guessing, like, from your side of things, how did you find out it was going to happen, and how did you react when obviously Mr. LORDI rang you and told you this is what he was thinking of doing?
Well, in all honesty, I was surprised. Like, I was
Right.
I had seen the issues and the everything going on, like, through the years, but I just thought myself that Eamon was such a how do you say it, like a foundation character in the band, that I did not see it coming that he would be leaving. But when Mr. LORDI came up with this idea and asked my opinion about it, then when I, like, actually thought about it, then it started to make sense that actually this could change everything, that everything that is, like, kind of dragging this band behind and like causing issues and conflicts and all that I then eventually, when I thought about it, I realized that could actually solve everything, and it kind of did. I mean, like, of course, it's not just him that caused everything or whatever, but that was one of the big, heavy things going on with us that I don't think he even really wanted to be in the band anymore. Yeah. He just didn't know how to leave. So in the end, I see it actually as a kind of a natural development, not like a shocking kicking someone out kind of situation. I saw that it actually developed pretty naturally to this point that it was his time to leave. Yeah.
And I know obviously it was obviously a very difficult decision for Mr. LORDI to come around to, and me and Miss Me have spoken about it, but I guess for someone who had been in the band for so long to leave, then it changes everything going forward for LORDI, and especially musically speaking, because when he left, there was obviously a few weeks that passed when there was no official guitarist announced. So obviously Kone was in the band at that point and recording the album when all this was happening. But when we kind of found out about Kone, we seen his awesome look and people got to hear him live for the first time, I think he really kind of blew people's socks off. And it's kind of, on this album, the guitar work is phenomenal, and the solos and everything's just kick ass in this. So I'm wondering, when you kind of met Kone and heard all of these things, what was your kind of first reaction to him as a person, and then musically then as well?
Well, let's start from the musical side, because that's what I've obviously, like, got to taste first.
Yes,
like, saw playing guitar and everything, and I was pretty blown out. He's an amazing guitar player, like, really talented and skillful. So when I saw the clips of him playing guitar and all that, I thought that we would be, like, really lucky to get someone like that in the band. And then eventually when he got in and we started to, like, get to know each other, even though he's a young guy, but he's very well fitting in the group. Like, you can really, how would you say, his personality adapts with the rest of us so well that now it feels like he's always been in the band. So didn't feel like, I don't know, it's just he just so weirdly naturally just fit in, and so smooth with him that almost feels like when is it going to blow up? Something will come up that we didn't expect.
And I know I was speaking to him last week, and he was saying like how welcoming everybody was into the band as well, because I think he said the first time you guys were all actually in the same room together was when you were in the recording booth kind of doing the backing vocals.
Yeah, that's right. Because everything, we kind of interviewed him, if you can say that, and all that, just on video calls. So we actually physically met already. We were already in the studio.
It's a funny way to kind of all get to know each other.
Yeah, well.
And kind of then, with this new album as well, we finally get new LORDI costumes for the first time in quite a while, actually. Probably the longest period of time we've had without a new LORDI kind of look, because really we haven't. You guys have had the collection kind of costumes since late 2019, really, up until a couple of weeks ago, pretty much, or a few months ago. So with this new costume coming in, obviously you're kind of looking like Frankenstein's bride and that, but did you have much kind of discussions about your kind of look in this album, or was that kind of Mr. LORDI's idea that you would look like Frankenstein's bride, and then you kind of worked away on that, and then you kind of just seen the finished product?
Yeah, he got this idea of this kind of Bride of Frankenstein thing, and then he asked my ideas, and then we combined them. So it was kind of meeting in the middle type of situation, how this current Hella developed. So I am actually always very interested in being involved in the costume building process, and this time it wasn't an exception. I was very into being there when he drew the first sketches, and we decided together every little detail, and some things are my ideas, some things are his ideas, and some things are compromises. So it's a very big time cooperation, like all the Hella costumes are.
Yeah, and then when I'm kind of looking at your design, then obviously, because I know when the album cover was kind of released, a lot of people expected you to kind of look like that on the album, and a lot of the members to look like how they're presented. And I know from speaking to Mr. LORDI, he was kind of like, he didn't have an idea back then when he did the cover of how you guys would eventually look like. So it's definitely different for LORDI in the way the covers kind of work, because you tend to kind of look like them when the album comes out. But was there ever a discussion at any point for you to have the hair like Frankenstein's bride, or was it always going to be, no, you're going to have blonde hair this time?
No, I think it was already decided a while ago that Hella would have a longer blonde hair. And we stick to that despite of this idea of Bride of Frankenstein touch would develop onto it. But it is true that when Mr. LORDI made this painting of the album cover, this was not even supposed to be anything to do with the costumes. I don't think he was that far yet. But then some of these ideas actually then ended up inspiring the costumes as well. So at this point, when the album cover was created, I don't think he even knew that any of these elements would end up in the costumes.
Right. Okay.
So it's kind of and let's say, for example, in Kone's case, none of that werewolf kind of thing actually did end up in the costume. So it was the costume ideas were actually started to even think about on the tour that we did last fall, the very long over 9-week tour. Somewhere in the end of it, I remember that we started the first time sit down and Mr. LORDI and Jessica had their kind of brainstorm ideas about the costume. So at that point, this album cover had been painted a while ago. The whole costume process was started only much later. So it's a kind of a coincidence then that some of the costumes got elements out of it.
That's very cool.
But no, this hair was never never on the table. That's sad.
Yeah, I can imagine it would be quite awkward if you had to have that really tall hair on stage all the time. Yeah. If it was there.
Like Mark Simpson next time.
Yeah, exactly.
It would be pretty heavy. But I don't think I had once black hair, and I think that was the worst hair that I've had. So Hella is blonde. It's just good.
That was Scare Force 1, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah, that was it, and it was not the best.
No. Was it just for the look wise, or the hair itself?
The hair color. I mean, like, it changes the character completely.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with black hair, but it just was too much of a change. Felt like it. And the classic Barbie has this blonde hair, and it is. I think it just belongs. I like it. It's more me when it has blonde hair. So. And
obviously, with all these kind of costumes, the album itself, you know, it calls back on a lot of the old school horror movies. And I'm wondering, do you like any of the old school horror movies, or do you have any favorite kind of old school horror character or monster or anything?
Maybe not like the super old classic black and white horror movies. I don't think I've really actually seen much of that category of movies. So.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe of course like the classic Frankenstein, Dracula back in the days or whatever. But to be honest with you, I might not be able to answer this question.
Really? Because I know you don't really like horror movies at all, kind of, do you?
I love horror movies, but these like super old classic ones, I would have to admit that I'm not like someone who would know lots of details about them. Like I was born mid of '80s, so I'm the in that way. Like I think I've seen mainly just like starting from the '90s. Let's see where my horror movie knowledge starts from.
Yeah, and I can understand it, because myself, I'm born in 1990, so kind of looking back on those old school movies, it kind of takes a little bit of work, I feel, to kind of sit down and enjoy. Like, you can enjoy them, but it does take a little bit more dedication, I find.
Exactly, and maybe I've never found that I would be that interested. I would really get into that. not horror itself is definitely my thing. Like I love horror movies, and the more scary, the more like nightmares I get after it, the better movie it was. But yeah, I think I'm more into this modern horror movie scene than
the old school,
than the very cool ones.
Yeah, and I guess kind of, even though you don't really kind of like the old school horror movies, you know, the new music video, Dead Again Jane, that really is kind of has those aspects of those old school horror movies, with Tracy Lipp obviously trying to be this creepy dude in the new music video. All of the close-up shots of the band members, I think the costumes look the best in this music video in comparison to all of the other videos, because the camera just is so close to you. You see all the little details of everything. Like it's brilliant. And the Tracy Lipp stuff, as well as this kind of Nosferatu kind of character almost, and then with Ralph over the top kind of caricaturish kind of character too. Just, it's a brilliant video from start to end. And obviously that day was so long. From talking to the other guys in the band, they were telling me like it's nearly 40 or 60 hours or something that they felt like. So what was that experience like for you recording it?
Well, I love making music videos, and I was really into it. Like, we first had our, like, a band filming day, and then when those, like, acting scenes were filmed, I was also there.
Okay.
I casted a friend of mine to be the Jane in the video.
Oh, cool.
So I was there. Yeah. So I just loved being there, hanging out with her, and I made her hair for the video, and was loving to be there, just watching them do stuff and try to help out as much as I could. But I wasn't there until the morning when when the actual filming ended. But like, yeah, I would have loved to be more involved if I would have had time. I just love the process of making music videos and movies and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I loved it. It was very cool to get to see how it was done, and I'm really, really proud of the product. Like, Mr. LORDI is so talented with like directing. I think if he wasn't doing LORDI, he would be a movie director.
Yeah.
Or a stand comedian. Either one.
One or the other. And
yeah.
I do honestly think, because like the last 3 or 4 LORDI music videos have probably been the kind of the best out of the lot, because I loved Naked in My Cellar. Was a really high quality video, visually striking video, and then obviously then when we had I Dug a Hole in the Yard for You and Borderline, you know, every music video seems to have improved on the last. And do you think it's been a very positive decision then for Mr. Lordi to kind of step into that directorial role now?
Yeah, I really think that that's when you get what you want.
Yeah.
When you are and directing it yourself, and he's done a great job of finding then the right guys to do the camera work for him, who are really easy to cooperate with, and they listen what he say and they deliver what he asks. Yeah, I just love all the stuff that he's done, and I really think that we should only do videos directed and written by him in the future.
Yeah, I get it. I think it'd be a very hard decision to make, to revert back to somebody else coming in. So yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. And obviously we're not too long away from the new album release. It's only about 4 days now away from speaking at this point, from it kind of coming out. And it's obviously a different release than the last time you guys had the 7 albums kind of coming out with Lordiversity. And when we spoke about that album, a lot of the guys in the band, they were kind of hesitant or unsure about what the fans' reaction was going to be. Like, people didn't know whether they'd take it seriously or they'd enjoy all of the albums, or, you know, people were going to have their favourites and maybe not listen to the others as much. But I'm wondering, from your side of things, from how people reacted to you, what was the fan reaction from your side?
I was surprised how well all these 7 albums were taken. Like, I don't think actually any of them got really, like, crushing feedback, to say. Of course, there were all these, like, it was a matter of taste, and that who found which album the best and which was the least interesting and all that. But like all the albums found their fans, and that was very interesting to see. And I think I was actually surprised that, like, I didn't really see any of those 7 albums being, like, completely trashed.
Yeah.
And I don't know why would they be, but you know, that was, I guess, what I was a little bit afraid of, that when you do all 7 albums in different styles, that there would be one that like would get kind of a feedback, like, why was this done, that this doesn't suit for Lordi or whatever. But like all styles and albums were eventually, like, all of them found their fans. So
that is true. Yeah,
that was cool. Yeah.
And obviously with this new kind of chapter coming into Lordi, or it's the whole new era is just about to begin, and there's a lot coming up for the band in the future. You know, you've got obviously the music video coming out soon, and you're going on tour then with Sabaton. You've got the Malta gig on Friday, so there's a lot to be excited for from the fans' side of things. But from your side of things, what are you most looking forward to in the near future?
Well, gotta do just like one thing at a time. So the next big thing, the day after tomorrow, I'm flying to Malta, and then that'll be my first time visiting there. So it is exciting. And then this tour with Sabaton will be also like a very new kind of experience, because we're playing big arenas, and some of them are already like sold out.
Yeah.
Like Tico Dome in Amsterdam, and like it's just mind blowing the size of the production of Sabaton's tour. So that will be like very interesting to get to see from close distance, that how is this size of band and production and tour being delivered. That I'm very interested to see.
Yeah,
we are honored to be the opening guest, but the real show is obviously Sabaton, and very excited to see how is it actually, like, production wise made. And that I'm very curious to get to see that.
That's cool. So kind of like, as we kind of wrap up, you might have seen I asked fans for some questions for you.
Okay.
People that have kind of a few ideas, maybe some different things maybe I wouldn't have kind of come up with at the top of my head. So the first fan question comes from Farhan Plays, and they want to know, what was your favourite memory from the Lordiversity tour?
My favourite memory? That is a bad one because I had a great time. I had a great time the whole time. You know, I don't think I've ever drank that much wine within overnight. So I was in a good mood for the whole time. Just kidding.
For the whole tour.
or was I? But anyway, this memory, geez, that's a tough one. We had we didn't really have a bad show. I mean, like, all the shows went so well, and like the atmosphere was good, and the whole tour is a good memory, I would say. So
okay, it's
really hard.
A nice answer.
But I would really need a day to pick up one.
So the next question then is from Diddle666, and they want to know what do your kids think of Lordi, and is it too soon for them to have experienced the full Lordi show?
My oldest one was maybe a little bit over 1 year old when she was already touring with us.
Right, okay.
Watching long shows with the earmuffs on almost every night. So I don't know. They've passed that line already a long time ago. They've seen full Lordi shows and music videos and everything. And I don't think I've really seen a reason to hide that from them. Like, of course, I'm thinking of like what's suitable for their age, but then when this is like what I do, so I think it's just good that they see it. And they see it differently because they know us. They know
exactly. Yeah.
It's like, yeah. So it's not that kind of scary stuff as it would be for someone who's never met us, or so it's a different thing. They have their favorite songs. They do dig most of the stuff, but I am afraid that I'm not growing heavy metal fans at home. Like so far their like taste of music have started a little bit go into a different direction, but I'm still hopeful.
Yeah, I know the feeling, because my kids, because obviously have like heavy metal and kind of Nordic folk playing all the time in the house, and they listen to that, and then my wife listens to kind of Irish traditional music and pop music, and then they start listening to that and repeating that, and then that becomes more popular for a while, and then they kind of come back to my music. So it's hard to tell when they're so young, like what is their favourite genre of music going to be, or anything, when they are so small. So Mr. Passy official, and they want to know, what is your favourite movie?
My favourite movie? Can it be any genre?
Yeah, any genre, nothing tied to a genre. Yeah.
Really, really tough decision. Like, I love so many different kind of movies that, well, my favourite actor is Brad Pitt. So
okay.
If I need to limit something, I would say his movies, and maybe like movies like Inglourious Basterds or something, if I would really have to pick up something that has been really effective. But I don't know, I watch so much all kinds of things, and then I like them for different reasons, so it's really hard to pick up like a favorite.
Okay.
I could make my top 20 if I would really be forced to, but it would take me a week.
Yeah.
But yeah, anything with Brad Pitt on is
good to pick. So the last question then I have from you is from La History Prof, and they want to know, will we ever see Hella with a guitar on stage for any songs?
You know, I would love to do that, but I have to tell you that Mr. Lordi absolutely hates guitar.
Does he?
Monoculous, but I can't find the words. Like something in between disgusting and I don't know. He just absolutely hates it, and he will never ever allow me to do that. So the answer is no.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
It is unfortunate.
Oh, well.
Unless, like, you know, world has shown that how dramatically things can change. So maybe I can persuade him at some point to have some kind of little thing. But like at this point, my answer is no. Unfortunately.
What a delight it was to hear the playful ramblings of the schizo dog, Hella. I hope you found joy in our talk with this demented toy. Join me next week for another creature feature. Thanks for listening, and of course, goodbye.
Monsters of Rock, the LORDI story, is a true metal podcast production. The show is presented, produced and written by Matthew Kessie. Head to True Metal Pod's social channels to keep up to date with the production.